My name is Rob Kroon. I work for a company called VR Automotive, a business development company in the Netherlands, and we are one of the partners of the proEME project. A short introduction of the project. We are a consortium of multiple companies interested in electric mobility, coming from some Scandinavian countries, from Belarus, Germany, Denmark, Hungary, and we are from the Netherlands then. And our main goal is to support the uptake of EVs by building knowledge and tools to support policymakers, to support decision makers, fleet managers, but also private people. And I'm going to tell you something today specifically about the effect of incentives on EV uptake. So a little bit more introduction for proEME. The way that we look at the field is that we are seeing four fields of applications. So we are looking at new and second-hand vehicles. We're also looking at new mobility. We're looking at e-buses and e-logistics, so trucks. And we also see in our project 4 lines of actions. More the core is about the data and policy analysis, so building the knowledge, which is the foundation of the project, and from that building support tools. And with those tools, we can go out to the market, so we can support markets in EV uptake, how to do that, and we can also support governments in their decision-making processes. It is important to know how people make their choices to shift from a current vehicle, which is probably diesel or a gasoline version, to an electric vehicle. And the way that we see it is that there are 4 main things playing a major role, 4 boundary conditions playing a major role in their choice. So the first one is about the finance and the financial incentives. It's about the availability of vehicles, of different EVs and their range and their cost. It's about charging points, and it's about public's perspective on EVs. And on the right side, you see the effect of the incentives of battery electric vehicle uptake in Europe, where you can see that there's a growing curve over there. So the landscape is quickly changing, and this all has to do with the different parameters. But what are those financial incentives then? We've taken a look at different countries to look at what are the different financial incentives. And the first example is about Norway, where they've got a huge amount of different incentives to stimulate the uptake of electric vehicles. And these are a couple of examples that are written out, but this doesn't give a good overview of the real effect of these incentives. So you need to put these incentives into perspective by building TCO calculations, the total cost of ownership of a vehicle. And again, this is an example from Norway. It's a purchase price for a private person, so that's of course works differently for company cars, but this is a private example where we have compared 3 types of Golfs. The first one is a gasoline version, this is a diesel version, and this is an electric Golf. And we've looked at the purchase prices and all the other taxations on it on these vehicles, and we compare them. So if we look at this example, you see that the diesel is a little bit more expensive than the electric version, and the electric version is a lot more expensive than the gasoline version. But this is only for purchase. If you want to go from purchase to total cost of ownership, you need to know the depreciation, and this is also something that we really dove into to really get a good overview about what is the depreciation of a vehicle. It used to be a general perspective that an electric vehicle would depreciate faster than a conventional diesel or gasoline powered vehicle. But in the meanwhile, especially in Norway, we saw that the depreciation in terms of percentages is lower for an electric version. for an electric Golf, resulting in a much lower TCO. So the total cost of ownership, if you drive an e-Golf in Norway for 15,000 kilometers a year, 4 years long, is a way better business case than driving the internal combustion versions. So this is an example for Norway. We did that for multiple countries, of course. So we took a look at the Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Sweden, Norway, Austria, and the UK. And we compared private uses and company uses in the different perspectives in terms of purchase. So I just showed you the overview of the purchase cost of these electric vehicles and the comparison between the diesel and the gasoline version compared to the electric version. But you need to convert that also towards the TCO. So the total cost of ownership of a vehicle also includes the depreciation, of course. It includes the insurance, road tax, maintenance, and the total cost of energy. And what's often the case in an electric version is that these operational costs per kilometer are lower than a diesel or gasoline version. That mainly has to do with the total energy cost. So the more kilometers you can drive with an electric version, with an electric car, the better the business case becomes. But here you can see there are a lot of differences in the different countries. So it means that different types of incentives have different types of effect on TCO, stimulating the purchase of one type of drivetrain. So the next thing that we did was that we took a look at the price elasticity, and to be honest, this is a draft version. We need to work on it and get some more results in this graph. But I wanted to show you what we're heading for. We've looked at the differences in total cost of ownership and if an electric version was more expensive or cheaper. So here you see when the battery electric version is cheaper or more expensive, and the middle line is when it's cost neutral to a gasoline powered vehicle. And on the other axis we have the uptake in percentages of new registered electric vehicles. So one example, the best example, again, we take Norway. Private used electric vehicles in our calculation are about 7,000 euros, 8,000 euros cheaper to drive than a gasoline version, resulting in an uptake of 50%. And here you've got all the other dots that we've calculated, and it shows that after the break-even point and when battery electric vehicles become cheaper, there's a steep incline in battery electric vehicle sales. So meaning we see a relation between a TCO advantage and good EV uptake. Again, this is a draft version, so we're working on it, getting it to the next level. But then there's also a question: are these successes in different countries also are they only stimulated by financial incentives? And we see that's definitely not the case. There have been incentives, for example, in Norway since 1990, a really important one, the import and purchase taxes exemption. And this continued all along, but the real uptake only began when the first electric vehicles came to the market. So what we also did was that we took a good look at what type of vehicles are coming to the market in next years. So we put them in 3 graphs. We've looked at different types of vehicles. So economy, so the cheaper vehicles, the premium vehicles, and the luxury vehicles. And you see a steep incline in new models that are coming to the market. And this is also really important. And the models that are coming to the market, they have got better batteries, bigger batteries, so longer ranges. It suits the driver needs better for people. So we see some positive developments over there in terms of availability of the right EV model for the right application. In upcoming years, so next 5 years, definitely there are going to be 200 models, new models introduced in the market, battery electric vehicles, which is actually 3 or 4 times higher than it is at this moment. All the big OEMs will have battery electric vehicles in their sales portfolio in 2025. Yeah, and the other developments. So, like I mentioned, the ranges are going to be higher, so it's easier to drive longer ranges with your vehicle, and they get more attractive due to the better batteries. So to jump to the final part where we show our findings. We see now at this moment that the market share of new EVs, it's growing. It's growing good, but in most countries the growth is relatively limited. There are some differences in incentives. Some prioritize business uses, some prioritize the private uses of electric vehicles, and it's interesting to see what type of different effects these incentives have on the EV uptake. We can also see that in the different countries where there is a higher taxation on a regular type of vehicle, there's a bigger steering wheel for the national government to lower those taxations for electric vehicles, and that's what you see, and that's also why the Norway and also the Netherlands are more or less a good example of lowering those higher taxations on EVs. Good incentives result to a better TCO. And these TCOs, better TCOs, result in a better EV uptake. But as you saw in the curve, in the price elasticity curve, there's a certain threshold to be overcome. If an electric vehicle is 10,000 euros more expensive, or 8,000 euros more expensive, those 2,000 euros, they will not make that much of a difference. But as soon as it gets to the break-even point, or after that, then there's a progressive uptake. It's also really important to have these policies visible and understandable for the larger audience. Consistency, long-term stability appear to be crucial, and like I mentioned, the understanding of the incentives is really important. And the final part, it's not only about these incentives, it's also about the availability of the right cars. And the right battery electric vehicles to suit the needs of the people willing to make the shift from diesel or gasoline to a battery electric vehicle. And that's already the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching.